I feel that for the most part, this movie may not have been quite as good as the fourth one, about on the same as the first three. Now, in terms of opening sequences, like when you look at the first 10 minutes of the film, if I had to compare the first 10 minutes of each film, I would almost say that this one takes the cake for that one. I mean, they were on the bridge over the ocean, over the water. I just thought that was, I mean, it had me hooked like from the start. I was looking at this and I just stared at the screen and couldn't turn away. I thought, this is beyond insanely wild. Now, again, I hadn't seen this movie before. I know I'm the last person in the universe to get to it, but here's the cast. Nicholas D'Agosto as Sam, Jacqueline McInnes Wood as Olivia, Miles Fischer as Peter, Emma Bell as Molly, Tony Todd as William, Ellen Wroe as Candace, Stephanie Honor as, it's not showing the character's name underneath there, and I'm drawing a blank on that. I think she was in the last movie. And Chasty Ballesteros as the spa receptionist. Now, the scores on this movie are somewhat mixed, but relatively better compared to the fourth movie's reviews. I thought the fourth one was better, but Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic disagree with me on that. Metacritic, 50. Internet Movie Database, 59. Rotten Tomatoes, 63. Google, 79 to 82. Now, the budget on this movie was $40 million. The box office was almost $158 million. So you're talking almost 4 times the budget. As I always say, that's great for a horror film. Even when a horror film does twice its budget, I mean, that's good for them because, let's face it, it is a horror film, and horror films are automatically less popular than any other movie genre, and they're just always on the lower end of the spectrum. I mean, they're just at the raw end of the stick. That's just the deal. So, during a bus ride with his colleagues to a corporate retreat, Sam experiences a horrifying vision. The suspension bridge that they and many others are crossing starts to crumble around them. When his vision ends and almost immediately starts to come true, Sam takes quick action that saves a number of people, including his girlfriend Molly and his best friend Peter. However, the survivors soon find that death will not be denied. We know what the theme of this franchise is. Death. If death wants to get you, he's going to get you. One way or another. Anybody, anywho, anywhere, anyhow. Directed by Stephen Quayle. So distributed by Warner Brothers Home Entertainment Film Flex. Now, to get to how Commons' media breaks it down, I felt that a lot of this movie had been going at a slow pace. I think the beginning of the movie was more exciting than almost anything else. I think towards the end, the plane scene, which kind of reminds you a lot of the plane scene from the first movie, I think this one was slightly more intense. Overall, I would average this movie out to be, I guess I can give it like a 7.5, maybe an 8. It's always hard for me to choose just one specific direct number, so that's why I usually give it a range. If I had to pick a specific number, I guess it could be an 8. I would say the other one gets closer to a 9. The fourth one gets closer to a 9. The first 3 are all get. The first 3 you can say you can give it around 8. The first one probably gets 8.5. Now, Commons' media. 16 parents gave their opinions of it, and 56 kids gave their opinions of it. I don't know how their parents are letting them watch this mess, but okay. A group of employees from Presage Paper, prepares to go on a business retreat. Sam, who would rather be a chef than a salesman, has a fearful premonition while riding on the bus. A bridge collapses, killing dozens. Acting quickly, he saves his girlfriend Molly, his boss, and 5 other co-workers. Unfortunately, since they were supposed to die on the bridge, death begins stalking them one by one, killing them in random accidents. Can the survivors discover a way to break the chain? Yes and no. Now, is it good? Oddly, this movie is a bit better than its predecessors, though that's not really saying that much. Of course, they are not going to be nice about this. Thanks to the huge success of the fourth film, the fifth film became an inevitability. It's the feature directorial debut of Stephen Quayle, who was a second unit director on Avatar and also helmed Aliens of the Deep. He has lots of experience with 3D. Not surprisingly then, the use of 3D here is pretty good, especially the smashing title sequence. Yeah, that was pretty good. That was pretty sweet right there. Title sequence right there, obviously better than the rest of the films. The characters are a bit more sympathetic and humorous, and unlike in the fourth film, they tend to show empathy for their fallen friends and co-workers. The death sequences, as always, are elaborate, Ruby Goldberg-like traps, with misdirection and deception at every turn. It's fascinating that these sequences tend to elicit a squirmy, giggly reaction from audiences rather than dread or terror. This is a purely cathartic, visceral experience, not having anything to do with characters or plot. But other than that, any redeeming social value is negligible. Families can talk about the movie's violence. How does the 3D affect the impact of the movie's gory, grisly murder scenes? Is any of it intended to be realistic? As I said in the last video, I think the 3D effect helps intensify it brings more excitement, more thrill. And like I mentioned in the last video, I went to go see Texas Chainsaw 3D. That came out in 2013. He threw a chainsaw at the screen. People in the theater, they flinched and jumped. I think that just adds to the excitement, and it helps keep the attention. Now, again, that doesn't mean ultimately everybody's going to think it's a great movie. Some people will think it's bad. Others will think it's amazing. There's going to be varying opinions of it. It's a movie, and at the end of the day, as I always say, all movies are just designed to entertain. So there's all different types of opinions of it. Why would audiences want to see a movie like this? Is there something cathartic about facing death in this way? Are humans really subject to fate, or do we have free will? How much control do we really have over our lives? So I think audiences want to see this movie because if you're a horror fan and you like if you're a fan of horrors and action and thriller, this right here is kind of all those things put together. It's wildly insane. And I mean, you can argue, yeah, there is a certain free will that we all have to a degree. And are humans really subject to fate? I mean, a lot of people would argue yes, other people would argue no. It really depends on how you look at it. And so I've gotten through all 5 movies here, and I got to say this is a good franchise. I would definitely say it's in my top 10 at this point as far as horror thrillers. And I've seen some sources that say that there's possibly a 6th movie on the way, and I will talk about that in another video. I'll cover a few articles and sources let's see how much confirmation I can get, and then we'll go from there. So I have more movies and shows to talk about. Like and subscribe.